used car group in Florida. They were in Orlando, they were down in Miami, and at one point they were selling cars out of a trailer and basically a bullpen in the back. They would buy cars at the auction and from consumers that were literally had really bad Carfaxes, and they would repair them. And they were they were very transparent as to what it was that was wrong with the car initially, but they wouldn't really do anything to them. They would sell them just the way that they were, and you knew what you were getting. You weren't getting two keys, you weren't getting two floor mats. You're going to get a car with a bad Carfax that was fixed. It might even have a bent frame or whatever, and but you bought the car for thousands less. And typically, those cars were way back a book, so they really appealed to people that might have credit issues, special finance customers, and they ended up selling out to private equity. They sold out to Cerebus, and Cerebus took it over, and they hired a guy who was running Herb Chambers stores, and he ran it. And they were open for 2.5 or 3 years. They opened up a big location in Houston, and they changed the name to Car Squad in Houston. And I think that was maybe a year ago, if that. And then yesterday, they announced they were closing, and I believe they filed for bankruptcy.
Hmm.
Hmm.
You know
So
why?
that's the short story. I don't know why, other than the fact that they've had challenges, obviously acquiring inventory, just like everybody else has in the used car space that doesn't have a new car franchise because you can't get trades. So they had to probably rely on auctions, is my guess, to buy cars, and they probably struggled to do it.
It's a little hard to get off lease vehicles too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that was the name. That was the name they used, off lease only. But they didn't. They bought anything. It didn't really matter. They weren't off lease cars. They would buy. They would go to if Enterprise or Hertz had, basically cars that had been in an accident. A lot of times they just run the cars that way. Off lease only would run them. If there was a car that had a bad CR and a bad Carfax at the auction, they always had buyers in the lanes that were buying those cars. Like those were the guys that were there, and they hawked them. Like they had guys in every lane for that. They had people online buying them literally all over the country. They were great at buying cars with bad Carfaxes and low CRs. They didn't care. If the price worked and the book worked, they bought it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And that was their model, and now they're gone.
I would say, I guess it didn't work out too well, huh?
For a
Well,
while it
it
did.
worked. Well, it
Well,
worked
banks
when the
are
guys
getting pretty tight with lending money now. I would think
they
that's
are.
That's what the
Yeah.
captive lending is a problem with no franchise, right?
Yes, that doesn't. I mean, they have relationships obviously with probably some decent banks, but I think that I don't know
by
if
the
they'd
way,
switch the
3 seconds,
direction of that business or
guys.
what. Okay.
Here we go. And we can pick right up on that. No sense in
Yeah,
dropping
continue.
that was a good one.
Yeah, we talk about off lease only, right? So, anyways, the guys that were the masters behind it, I don't know if they continue to work for the company or for how long, but obviously, I don't think they were following the same business model. They were trying to become more of a, just an independent CarMax type dealer, and they they went out of business. They announced it, it was announced yesterday formally, but rumors started swirling around like 2 days ago on the internet because people showed up for work and the door was closed and there was literally a sign on the door. That's how they found out,
Huh.
which is a
Oh,
Wow.
horrible way to have to go to work. To be honest with you,
cold
it's really
blooded.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
sad.
that
It's really sad.
sucks.
Huh.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a man. Just thinking about it, like it our business, we've been having to teach dealers about uh, refinancing leases a lot now because a lot of people are not really wanting to get out of the car they're driving for something else that's more expensive and more payment. So we're hitting up lease turn-in customers with information and offers. They're wanting to keep their cars and refinance it. It just hasn't been something that a lot of dealers have done in the past. Done it as in
Yeah.
big numbers. It's usually like, five a month or something like that. Um, Now it's getting up there. But the
Yeah,
banks,
but those are going to dry up soon, though. Those are going to dry up because
yeah,
when no one's leased a car, I mean, the leasing penetration is extremely low now. It's not going to stay. It's going to probably stay that way for a little while. I would think it's going to be no. There's not going to be any cars for years. Years. I don't care what anybody says. There'll be no cars. Just some rental cars with high miles on them, probably, and obviously new car trades. But there's not going to be any off lease cars for a long time. The used car problem's not going to go away.
yep, yep. Well, That's why we're here today, right? At least
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of background on why you all got together and started the Blueprint, but I assume it has to do with this market we're in, and dealers struggling to keep
Well,
up with it.
I think Paul and I have a history, and I think that we should probably maybe Paul let you go first, right? We've known each other a long time,
Hmm.
and you might want to just share how we met and how we originally got together and how we did business previously in the past until we got to this point today. But Paul and I have known each other a long time, and I would say Paul, and I'm sure he probably would say the same for me, unless I'm wrong. But we're very close friends. We've known each other a long time, and we have very similar values.
For
It
sure.
sounded what he was saying earlier.
Well, we weren't rolling. No, Todd and I met. My first business I started in 2003. It was a reconditioning business. So fixing wheels and bumpers, paint work, interior repairs. And Todd just owned a big dealer group in the Syracuse area. So that business for me, I grew it into a regional business servicing the Northeast. And so Todd and I just met. We were doing some services for his stores. I had pivoted that business that was acquired by Dent Wizard International. I had been building an agency, and really with the desire to translate retail brand marketing into automotive, who are retailers but just often don't act like it. And Todd was in a season where we knew each other, and he had just hired a CMO, a very savvy CMO named Robin Moore, and they were trying to transition his business from Todd Caputo, the used car king, to Sun Auto Group, simple, upfront, and nice. And so he moved to a one price model, was doing all this transition. So Todd and Robin actually hired my agency as our first like rebrand of an automotive client. And we really got very operationally in the weeds, tied it back to brand building. And, we just built a relationship off of really changing fundamentally. Todd can talk about this more. The structure of his used car business. Many people may or may not know he had several used car outlets, had built a used car brand in addition to his single point Chevy store. And just kind of like flexing that game of brand building, process, acquisition, right? Like Todd was talking about all these things way before they were the topic of common conversation. And so that's kind of, then we just became really close friends. We have a lot of shared values. Our families became friends. And then, after Todd sold his group for billions, he was like, what am I going to do with my time? Like, what am I going to do with my time? And I'm just like slaving
I
away every
wish.
day still. Todd's in a dealer right now. No, but I think that what rose up in us is like, how can we help more people at scale? Now that Todd is consulting other dealers, his time is limited, and I'm in media and marketing and just have a desire to communicate and have more dealers improve, because I believe that's good for the industry when process is better and customer experience is better. I think it raises all of us up. So we just kind of kicked around, like, what can we do to help more people at once, with our time. So, that's where Dealership Growth Blueprint came from. And, we're kind of embarking on this journey now. So there you go, Todd. How'd I do? Is that kind of the Cliff's Notes?
You did good. Yeah. So what I would say, when we go back to where we met and, I worked with you with your agency, the first challenge that we had was one price, one person, remember? First it was, why did we go to one price? Because I was not a one price dealer forever, and we switched to one price. And it wasn't just dealing with the public and telling the public why we went to one price. It was also internally, culturally, we produced a lot of things just internally to get people to kind of go along with it. And Paul, you can remember too, a lot of people left, right? Like they didn't believe that you could sell cars for one price, so they left. They
Yeah.
bailed.
You
Um,
called it too. You're like, we're going to lose 70% of our staff,
and we
our
did,
sales
and
staff.
we did. And your company helped us with the one price, and then we had to talk about why one person rather than two or three. And again, that was an internal thing and a consumer marketing as well. And I couldn't have picked a better person to do it with. You and the people that were at your agency were amazing, right? At telling stories and really understanding what branding is all about. And I was willing to actually invest in doing that. Not a lot of dealers, or even not just car dealers, but other businesses don't want to always spend the money on brand building, or they don't partner with the right agency to do it. And that was one of the reasons why we were so successful. And honestly, too, I think it's one of the reasons why I was able to sell to a public, was because of the fact that we were single point of contact, and we were one price. And that is Echo Park's model as well. And that's why it actually was such a good fit for myself and for Sonic. And if I hadn't met you and been able to help develop that with you and your company, I don't know if I'd be here today, as a consultant who was a former dealer that sold to a public. And also, too, I think we should tell everybody it's important, right? Like Robin Moore, who was my CMO at the time, she ended up going and working for you, and she's your partner now at your agency, and she's wonderful. She's amazing. She's a friend, and she's great. So I just want to bring that up too, because Robin's awesome. I love her.
Yes, she is. Robin is one of the most operationally minded marketers I've ever seen in my life. Like, because a lot of times I think you get into this bubble, and I think a lot of dealers can relate, where a marketer or a brand person will come in and be like, I have this vision for your brand, right? You're like, and the dealer's just like, I don't think you actually understand how it happens once a customer walks in the door, right? And so tying those two things together is really important. I mean, if anybody doesn't know Todd, he is like hands in the dirt kind of guy through and through. I just remember one day we were doing a shoot or something, and Todd was out on like the lot plowing snow for like 4 hours, and he was just out there with his people. And so I think that like kind of embodies, the nature of a lot of dealers who are just still in the weeds, still on the desk, still on the lot, just doing the fundamentals and the basics. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Question for
I got two things. I did not realize SUN was an acronym. Didn't know that all this time. And you were saying that
it wasn't. So Sun was always Sun. Like my father gave it the Sun name. My father gave it the Sun name, but Paul's agency came up with the acronym, right? Like simple, upfront, nice.
Okay.
That's what they did.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's awesome. And why
I actually have the patent on my desktop, Todd. I do, or the trademark. Sorry, Jeff.
Why? That's all right. Why do you think you lose 70%? You were estimating you would probably lose 70% once you went over to one price, and it sounds like that's you were pretty close to that percentage. Why is that? Why do you? What's people's thinking? What's going through their heads whenever they're like, "Oh, this isn't going to work, and I'm out."
Yeah, so got to remember, this was 2017, 2018. When I decided to go to that model, I just didn't make that decision overnight. Like I did over like probably a year and a half worth of diligence. I mystery shop CarMax. I went to Car Sense in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, which Penske acquired because they had the same model. I went to Echo Park. This was before I even really had a relationship with them, but I had a very good relationship with eLead, and eLead had set me up with Echo Park. So I went to Echo Park out in Denver because I wanted to see the model. Like I wanted to make sure that it was the right decision, and I wanted to see what actually happened in the store. But once I made the decision and knew that it was the right decision, it was the right thing for my customers and the right thing for my people, I had a hard time selling it to a lot of the people that worked for me because they were they were old school car people, right? Mostly men, pretty much all men for the most part. They always thought it was about negotiation, and they thought that all customers wanted to negotiate, which I did not agree with. And, switching to one price, they had to just switch their mindset. And I learned then, and I'm still learning now, consulting, it's not easy to get people to switch up and change, especially when they're used to doing things for so long. They don't want to change. So I was able to really hire a different kind of person by going one price, and also not having gross based pay plans. It was all based on volume. It was all based on products that were sold in finance. And when they weren't paid a percentage of the gross, the price didn't really make any difference to them. It was all about selling cars, having good CSI, offering F&I products, selling those products, knowing what they are, and knowing the value of those products. And I just had people that wouldn't believe, that just didn't believe. They'd been with me forever. They'd all done really, really well financially. Thanks to the opportunity that I gave them, but thanks to their hard work too, working at the dealerships bell to bell every day. It's not an easy business, and they just didn't believe. They thought I was going to go out of business and it was going to fail. And honestly, people, there was a rumor going around that I lost my mind. Like Paul, you remember this, right? The rumor was Todd Caputo has lost his mind. He's crazy. He's lost it.
That
It's never
happened
going
the
to
day you
work.
were born, Todd.
Hmm?
You came out of the womb that way.
He did.
That's true. Yeah,
He
you might
did.
be right
I
about
remember one of
Yeah.
our first so now we have to re-educate everybody on like the new Todd, right? And everyone's used to seeing Todd, just like standing on his lot with cars, just shuttling in behind him, like, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one. And
that. Oh, the infomercials.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
because he was like all in. Like we were like
commercials.
30 minutes. If you're up you're watching
Yep.
Todd walk the lot, And one of our first Facebook posts, which to this day was probably the best performing Facebook post I or the agency ever created. And it was a picture of Todd sitting like in a chair just looking, and it said, "Dealers have been ripping people off for years." And that was the text on the photo. And Todd was like, wait a minute, whoa. Before he posted, he's like, what if they think it's me? I was like, they already kind of think it's you, right? It was like, and what that post did was just rocket organic traffic and actually got people back to VDPs because it put them back into his world and allowed him a moment to say, actually, this is what I believe about what people really want in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, people did think you went crazy, especially your peers, right? Like the other dealers in the area were like, what the heck? Because was there any other one price dealer in the Syracuse market at the time? I don't think so.
Nobody. No, and
Yeah.
I wanted to be first. I did. I wanted to be first. So Roger Burdick, who's a good friend of mine, Drivers Village around the corner, they were kind of one price, not completely, but they were not one person. They were, they had, F&I managers in the box. They were kind of one price, but they
Can you
weren't. And there
kind
were
of be
other
one
dealers that
price?
kind of said, no, in my opinion, you can't. I
Yeah,
mean, you
Like,
can't.
kind
You
of
say,
be
can't
a
what
take
is
one
price.
that?
penny off the price. You're
That's the
you're
hard
either all in or you're not, and I was
That's the
all
hard
in.
part, right? Like when you're like, you tell your sales staff who's used to like making things happen for like $100 set of floor mats, and like, we can't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, that
Like,
was very, very
I mean, that's
difficult.
probably,
And
yeah.
we measured it. I got reports that showed if there was over allowance. I saw that, and also if there was a difference in the selling price compared to the price that the car was advertised online. And if for some reason there was a deviation, there had to be a very good reason for it. And we every day we monitored that, right? And it took a little while, but we got there. We got there. But I couldn't have done it without really doing a lot of branding and a lot of marketing, and more importantly, explaining the why and doing it with Paul's agency. And again, I'm not here to plug any Paul's agency at all. It's great, but like we couldn't have done it unless we'd done it that way and really educate people. Um, if anybody wants to see how we did it, my YouTube channel's still up from the old stores. And Alex, I'll text it to you. Maybe you can throw it up, but like you can see all the stuff that we did and I spent a lot of money in marketing, and it was very high quality, like tier one kind of stuff. It was really good stuff. And we did a great job. That was a lot of fun. That's the thing I miss about not being in the business anymore was really the branding and the marketing. Paul, we had a lot of fun. We really did. We did some great stuff.
We
I mean,
sure
some
did.
really great stuff. Yeah,
We
I
sure
miss
did.
that. I do. I miss it a lot.
Are there any studies out there? You mentioned a few minutes ago the percentage of people that don't want to negotiate. And, I go back and forth with that even here at the dealership because we still have a ton of customers. Now we are, luxury, sort of old school, but we still have a ton of customers that come in that hands down want to negotiate. I'm just wondering, are there any studies out there that you guys are aware of that's showing maybe a decline in consumers wanting to negotiate?
I can't
I'd
name
have to
them.
look. I don't
I
know.
can't name them, but I know they definitely are there, and they do show a high level, especially younger millennials. Or no, millennials pretty solidly. Strangely enough, Gen Z is more wired to negotiate than Gen Y. And if you think so, like my oldest is 17, but I'm looking at like him and some of his older friends, and basically they are like they're kind of more in the entrepreneurial game, right? They like the back and forth. I would assume that because of the Mercedes store, that you're dealing with more customers who obviously have more financial means, but also are more business savvy,
Mhm.
and they're kind of used to like communicating for what they want, you know. I don't know. What was that comment that was just up there? I missed that.
Oh, that was Dan Sayer. So he was saying that they tried going one price, but their customers weren't accustomed to it, so
There you
they went
go.
to a place where they did market pricing instead, and sometimes
Yeah,
A lot of dealers have tried to go one price, and if you know,
had that
just over the
happen.
last 20 years, and a lot of them have failed at it.
we
I bet
failed
there's a real
second
big
class the
difference
first time.
market to market. I mean, that
I'm sure
that
there
gentleman
is.
just mentioned farmers and ranchers, right? And so you think of the mentality again, that is a mentality where you're kind of always negotiating life in general, right?
Hmm.
Just with that line of work and that mentality. And I would assume that an urban environment would be more geared toward a one price, or the closer you would get to a metro, probably more favorable to one price, because people want things fast and they like it clean because they have so much other things going on. And they kind of live in a one price world in a lot of senses. Like they travel, they go to hotels, you know, they buy furniture from websites, expensive furniture from websites. So I'm sure all that plays into it somehow.
Here's a
But and it's
You
psychological.
super
know,
hard on new car too, right? Like if we're talking used car, it's way different than, I mean, new car is a different game.
Well, here's something that just occurred to me in this whole conversation. It's like for the past 2.5 years now, customers have not been negotiating, but they've been paying a lot more than they would want to. Right? So, are we launching a whole new run on negotiations because customers weren't able to negotiate their last car?
I think a couple things. Um, Number one, back to just one price in general, and then I'll answer your question, Alex. So we couldn't have gone. We had to be one price because of the fact that we went to omni-channel. And my opinion, and it still is today, that if you're going to offer the consumer the ability to buy a car online, then the price that you have online is the price of the car. If someone's going to actually do the whole transaction online or even part of it. So that was what I had also pitched to my staff to get them to believe. I'm like, you don't go to Amazon and buy something and pay for it and then renegotiate the price when it gets delivered to you, or pretty much anything else. So how can we tell people we're going to give them a transparent price up front online, allow them to buy the car or partially buy the car online, and then have them come in and think that they could just renegotiate it? So that was my argument. Like if you're truly going to do e-commerce and truly going to do omni-channel, I believe you have to be one price. Um,
Yeah.
Again, just my opinion. Not a lot of dealers don't want to do that or believe it, but I believe that. Um, and secondly, Alex, what did you say again? What did you ask?
Speaking from a psychology standpoint, just
Yeah,
because of the pandemic and customers having to buy cars at full
yeah.
sticker or higher, have we now inspired these same people to come back on their next car and say, you know what, I'm not doing that again. Here's the price I'm
Well,
paying.
the problem,
Mm,
well, I can tell you right now, I think a lot of people are going to be really mad when they come back, and I'm already seeing it now with the groups that I work with. When I work with groups, I get access to CRM, and I look at the desk logs every day of all the stores that I work with, and I look at the comments of the people that they did not sell a car to, and I'm telling you right now, I'm seeing negative equity, negative equity, negative equity, like every single day. And
mm.
there are going to be a lot of people that are very upset when they go back to trade. And there's some of them already coming back now that bought cars a year and a half ago, and they just bought something just because they had to get a car. And I'm telling you, they're buried, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And then they're coming back at a much different interest rate. They're already upside down to begin with, and now the interest rate's probably two to three times more than it was, and it's a problem. Like it's a real problem. So the money that's been made by dealers over the last couple of years because of supply, right, and taking advantage of these supply issues and these huge gross margins, I think some of that money is going to get given back. That's just my opinion. And I also think you're going to have some consumers that are really upset, and you're also going to have some banks. You know, if there's any issues with the economy or unemployment, a lot of these banks are going to have problems if these cars get popped and repoed. You know, they're not going to get such a hit because used cars are stronger, but they're going to have problems. And I think people are going to be very upset.
When you say you think dealers are going to give it back, what do you mean?
Give back some of the profits.
Oh, just
Yeah,
its
they're going to.
profit margins are going to drop. Oh,
Well,
for sure.
they're not going to they're not going to sell as many cars. I mean, I don't believe so because of so many people that are buried. Now, I could be wrong, right? This is just a theory that I have, but if I'm already seeing this now desk logs, and I'm already hearing it from the clients that I work with, and I got clients all over the country with different franchises. And I talk to other dealers a lot. They're starting to hear it and see it where people are just upside down. And a lot of people had COVID money before for down payments to help offset
Mhm.
some of it, but they still
Mhm.
paid way over what the car was worth in most cases, whether it was used, whether or not it was new. So that extra money that they put down doesn't really make any difference. It almost washes out. They still overpaid at the end of the day. That's how I look at it. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I think dealers in general, like, you know what it's like the losing something you have now is just much more. There's just a lot more energy around defending. Like once we've saw like, hey, we can make these higher profit margins. Like you just look at the entrepreneurial nature of dealers in general, very creative, very nimble, and kind of getting used to a higher. I'm willing to bet that we see some really creative ways to keep profits up, and maybe it's not tied. You know what I mean? Like it's not front end growth. It's none of that stuff. But I think we're going to get creative in F&I products. I think we're going to get creative in service retention. I think dealers are going to find ways to keep the profits high because you just see how they hate to go backwards. And I think there's like this spirit of empowerment that has happened through COVID that has proven to the industry, like proven it to ourselves that like we can figure it out, right? Regardless, like we can figure it out. And you throw like electrification into the mix. And, that's another wild card that we don't know about, but I'm willing to bet that the creative dealers are going to figure out a way to pivot that as well. Especially as their leverage, I think, to the OEM is strangely, and again, like I'm just spitballing here, but consumer demand has been so artificially inflated on EVs that I think the dealers are going to be in a bigger position of power to the OEMs as far as getting better inventory, better incentives, better pricing. Because OEMs are going to have to move these vehicles. They've invested so heavily. And while just like 24 months ago, it seemed like the opposite, right? OEMs are like, you're going to do this, you're going to buy this, you're going to take this inventory and you're going to like it. You're going to put these chargers in. I think that's going to shift a little bit because of that leverage. And I can to circle that back to the profit conversation. I kind of believe in the entrepreneurial nature of dealers and their absolute hatred for losing margins they once had.
So dealers will figure it out. There's no question about it. I agree with that. You want to go down the EV rabbit hole, right? Like the only way EVs are going to move is if they get leased. Like if you can't lease those cars, I think they're not going to. I think they're going to sit. I was at a Ford store yesterday and I saw, I don't know, a dozen Mach-E's just laying,
Yeah.
and they're just going to continue to lay. And from a technology standpoint, if I'm going to buy an EV, I think the only way I would actually own one is to lease it, because I think in 2, 3 years from now, the battery life is probably going to continue to improve. The technology in the car is going to continue to change, and I wouldn't want to probably really own one of those cars. Not only that, you don't know what's going to happen with the pricing on these cars because they're going to discount them like Tesla is, or they're going to rebate them like the manufacturer is, or they're going to subsidize them with leases. So I don't think that it does. I don't think it's wise for a consumer to flat out go and buy an EV for cash or even finance it. Like if I was going to get an EV and I could afford it, I would lease it. That'd be the only way I would do it.
I'm with you on that.
Yep.
Could be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
For sure.
think
I mean, this
So,
kind of brings up like you think you circle this back around and where is the real opportunity for dealers, right? And it just keeps coming back around to operations, right? What are your processes, especially when it's coming to used cars? What are your processes? How are they integrated? How are you talking about them? How are you holding people accountable to the process on the ground? The tolerance for like bad merchandising, the tolerance for garbage websites is just, it's going away, right? Like the bad ones are only going to seem worse. The experience after you click through and you make the phone call or you interact with the BDC is just going to seem worse as you have more and more dealers like optimizing operations to preserve profits.
There's
uh,
to Todd, your point earlier about going omni-channel and making sure the price you show online is the same one that's quoted on the floor. There's some stores right here in Vermont that are still doing the that's the internet department. We do things
That's
a little
unbelievable.
different. Yeah,
yeah, I know.
it blows me
Well,
away. But people have
you know,
realized they can get a car shipped. It's not that hard. You don't have to buy from the guy down the street anymore.
so when we look at what's happened in this industry the last 2.5 years, give or take, right? There is mediocrity is the word that comes to mind, right? And when I built this little consulting business and I wanted to come up with a slogan and I was talking to Paul about it, like mediocrity kept coming to mind because of the fact that there have been people in our industry and other industries too, because of lack of supply, that have been, able to operate in a very mediocre fashion. And just, I hate to say this word, but I'll just say it. They've just become order takers. And what we're seeing now is the order taking is over with. You can't have a mediocre website. You can't merchandise your cars in a mediocre fashion. You can't handle customers poorly, thinking they're just going to pay sticker or better, or they're going to pay the price for that used car because I'm the only one that has one. Well, those days are slowly but surely coming to an end. Ask the people that have Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram franchises, or guys with F-150s lined up. They're piled up day supplies, 80, 90 days or higher. So if you think that you can continue to operate, especially with pre-owned cars in a mediocre fashion, I think you're sorely mistaken. And the last 2 to 3 months, with what the used car market's done, has been a wake-up call. But really, the used car market took a dip, last fall, quite a bit, and then it came back up into the spring. But this dip we're seeing now, regardless of what happens with the strike, I still think used car prices are just way, way, way too high. Now, I don't think it's going to go back to where it was pre-COVID. But my point is this: the order taking is over with, right? Operating mediocre is just over with. And that was why when I talked to Paul, Paul and I just, we think so much alike and our values are so aligned. And the reason why I'm consulting is because I just love helping people and I love the car business and I can't get away from it. It's impossible for me to have 40 or 50 dealer clients. I can't do it. I'm a one-man operation. I've only got so much time in the day. So when we came up with dealership growth blueprint, we thought, how can we use technology, use the ability to do this type of environment where we can do Zoom and have a community of people where we're learning about how to operate with pre-owned cars and really the top how the top 10% of the people in the country actually do it. So we developed this program, and I'm really excited to get it launched because I don't want to see people go backwards. I don't want to see profits go backwards, and I really want to see people just, you should be able to and want to operate your business as best as you possibly can every single day. If you're a salesman, you should want to do the best you possibly can do. You shouldn't be happy being an order taker. If you're a car dealer, you should want your inventory to look the best. You should want to have the best website. You should want to merchandise the best. You should want to recondition your cars properly. You should want to always price your cars accordingly to market. And you were able to get away with it the last couple of years, but I think those days are over. And also, too, when we developed this blueprint, I brought this up to Paul. I think what we're doing to educate people that work in dealerships is also valuable for vendors. I've been working with some vendors now in my consulting business, and we all have all dealt with vendors in the past, and especially Alex, like you worked for one, right, for a long time. But you came from a dealer family. You understand who car dealers are and how a car dealership functions. The vendors don't always understand what goes on in a car dealership every day. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the processes. And they spend so much time and effort and money to acquire dealers as customers and then do implementation and then do training and then they're gone and they don't understand what happens in a car dealership and you have churn and they end up losing customers and churn is the worst thing for a vendor. So we wanted to apply this blueprint not just to dealers and people that work at car dealerships but to vendors too, because Paul and I truly believe the vendors need to get a better understanding of used car operations and what happens in dealerships in general. Does that make sense, or am I crazy?
Well, you are crazy,
Crazy.
but it does make sense.
We already established you fell out of the womb that way.
Yeah.
I got dropped on
think
my head by my mother a few too many times, I think.
one of the things that I've been the beneficiary of a lot of times, and probably a lot of people can relate, is that sometimes like what you should be doing, but having somebody put the pieces in the right order, and like you have all the pieces swirling around, and oftentimes if someone just lines them up for you, you're like, oh yeah, I already know those things, but you just gave me like a stair step through it. And also a real powerful thing, I think, is just being around several other people who are on the same path, right? Because like I think of Olympic athletes a lot. It normalizes a level of excellence, right? Like they get up stupid hours in the morning, they have ridiculous diets, right? They sacrifice so much in their life, but to them, it's just normal, right? It's just what we do. And so the blueprint thing, like when we were talking about what to do, we were like, it has to have this element of community, right? Like you understand that with the refresh community, right? When people start rolling together, they start thinking together, they start chopping it up, and everyone starts to benefit and draft off one another. And so, I'm always thinking like, how can we build community around something? Right. And Todd brings the real substantive, hands in the dirt, practical knowledge. Like this thing has got all these like cheat sheets and worksheets, because you know what it's like. You take a course and then you go try to communicate it to your team, and it doesn't sound anything like what you heard. Or we like go to an event like Digital Dealer or NADA, and you come back and you're like, hey, I heard this great thing. We need to do it. Okay. What did they say? They said that, you know what I mean? And your team's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And so that's why like the community aspect to the knowledge, right? You have the practitioner and the insights and these broad perspectives coming into this. And then there's some practical things that you can bring to your team. And then there's like a private community where you can kind of like, hey, we tried this happened, or how about this problem? Because there is, if one thing's for sure, and everyone that's been in the vendor tech space understands this, there is no one size fits all for anybody anywhere. Like any dealer, you could have two of the same franchise, you could have two of the same market. It's still, everybody operates a little bit differently.
That's why I love that you guys are making this available on Discord.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense to keep the communication going afterward.
Yeah.
And after I was reading your FAQs and saw that, I was like, you know what? And sure, one day, and maybe you guys would entertain this at some point, but we could set up some private space on Dealer Refresh for y'all, and you could have the whole forum format if you wanted to go down that path as well. So
absolutely, that's awesome.
You have another
I
just
had a stray cat wander into my office. Come on over here. Look at this stray that just came in. Syracuse, New York. You guys know Glenn? Meow.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey,
What's
that's
up,
the guy I met
brother?
on the plane.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys met on a
That's
plane?
hilarious. Yeah, I didn't even. We're sitting next to each other, literally on a plane, and I always look at what people are doing when they sit next to me on a plane because I'm just nosy. This guy's looking at car stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm in the car business too. So we started talking, and yeah, I'm sitting next to Glenn Lundy, and he's sitting next to me, and that was it. And it turns out he knows some people that I know, and here we are together.
That's funny.
It's crazy.
Amazing,
That's great.
man. Amazing. It's great to see you. You look good.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. How you doing? I don't look as good as you, but I'm trying.
Oh, man.
None of us do.
Oh, stop
None of
it.
us do.
I'm trying to do this thing like you.
Yeah.
Working on it.
You're
Mom.
getting there.
I'll let you
Good.
finish. I'll float around.
See you later. Make all my people happy.
Yes, I can do that.
funny. The Syracuse vibe there.
Yeah, he was like on his way to like visit dealers in Canada today. He flew into Syracuse because you can drive up to the northern border in about an hour and a half. And then he's just coming back through and he's like, hey, I'm in Syracuse. I was like, you got to stop by then.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I was doing a little bit of researching. I found a percentage here. I don't know how accurate it is though, but it says here 87% of buyers noted that negotiating is a necessary step in the process of purchasing a new vehicle.
Did you say 87?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I like the way that's worded. 87% of
Well,
buyers.
it depends on how they
noted.
ask the question too, right?
I know.
Because if
and that's why
everybody's
I say I
wired,
don't like the way it's worded.
all the time, like, so when people crap on car dealers, right, in like public discourse, it's always like this terrible thing. And so, my business partner, my other business, ASOTU, we go all over the country, and whenever we do, we bring microphones and we start asking people on the street. We don't like, do you like dealers or not? Right? It's more like, what was the last car you bought? What did you like about the process? And if you could buy a car completely online, would you? Right? We kind of asked the questions in that order. To a person, I've never interviewed someone ever that didn't say they really loved the person they worked with, the salesperson. Every single person says that they enjoyed the interaction with the salesperson. Everyone. I've literally never had someone say anything otherwise. And then when we say, would you like to buy a car completely online if you could? Again, every single person said, I'd like to do a lot of the shopping online, but I kind of want to deal with a person. And that goes in the face of so many of the stats that we see or that Carvana puts out that people want to buy a car online. No, people want to shop for a car online, right? But they really feel better when there's a person attached to the other side. And so like when you get back to survey questions, like what do people actually think? You know, and what do they say? The trick is in the survey, you have to ask them what your neighbor thinks. Who do you think your neighbors are voting for? Right? Because maybe they don't want to say who they're voting for, right? Because, you know, who do you think your neighbors are voting for? And that's how you'll actually get what they think. But yeah, in the car buying process, whatever that stat was, I'm always like, well, how'd they ask the question?
You just took me right back to the 90s. When I first started selling cars, I had a used car manager who was named Mike Jobson. He's still in the business. And he had the greatest sayings. But you know, the politically correct way to say it is people want to buy from people they like and trust. But Mike always said people just want a good pat on the ass. And
that's true too. That's true too.
You're metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Well, this one's also this one. Yeah, this one's also showing 44% of respondents said they feel most comfortable using a combination of in-person and virtual purchasing when purchasing their next car. So 44%. So, you know, and then back to the 87% of buyers noted that negotiating is necessary. There was something else here that was stuck out. Only 6% of people indicated that they feel most comfortable sticking with an all online shopping experience. So dealerships are still a necessary part of the buying process.
Do you know that fits right in? There was in the heyday of the digital retailing, let's get on there as fast as we can. I was on a panel at a PASH event. And there was, we were running through different things about digital retailing. Dealer.com had some numbers. Dealer Inspire had some numbers. There were some other ones. I'm not sure if Roadster's numbers were there or not, but everyone to a T had less than a 5% completion rate. Huh. So less than 5% of people who went into the digital retailing tunnel actually came out the other end.
You know, that's where merchandising, in my opinion, digital merchandising, online merchandising, and photography really comes into play. And that's why Carvana, I believe, really helped raise the game for really the industry when it came to photography. You know, everybody does it online in Carvana. I mean, they get a money back guarantee, but 100% of the people that go to Carvana and go through it, they buy the car. I'm not sure how many people give them back, but they proved that people will do it all online. Now, profitably is a whole other long conversation, which I don't know if we want to get into today about whether they can run an online business profitably. But that's when we go back to, you know, why Paul and I are doing this and why I'm so passionate about merchandising and photography. You guys remember Joe Pastel and I building photo booths 20 years ago, right? When people didn't even care.
That's OG right there.
Of car out in the
Talking
snow.
about it on Dealer
That is OG
right
stuff,
now.
right?
You brought the OG back into the conversation.
Yeah. So, like, again, merchandising is so important when it comes to building trust, because if people want to start the process online and finish it at the store, or they just want to come into the dealership, I think that they're going to go to the dealer that actually cares about how their cars look online to begin with. And also, when they actually show up at the dealership, they're going to feel better about the car that they're buying. If they go to drive it and it actually starts and it's clean and it smells good and it has gas and you know where the keys are and it's parked properly out front in the right place, and everybody knows exactly where the car's parked, and it's not lost somewhere, it's not down the street getting a recall taken care of, and oh, you got to come back tomorrow to get it, right? Like those are the things operationally that are so important that I know just from being in this business for so long that make or break deals. Like they make, and it's
Mhm.
all about trust. And if everybody goes to websites first before they shop for a car. Everybody's going to a website first, whether it's a third party or it's your own website. That's the first place they're going. And if they like what they see and it's good presentation and it's merchandised properly and the car looks good and there's value propositions in your photos and you're doing things the right way and you actually take the time to care to do it, and as a dealer it's an expense to do it, it's money worth spending, then they will feel more confident about taking out a 6-year loan, a 7-year loan, spending more money than they're going to spend on anything else other than a house, because you've shown as a business owner, as a dealer, that you care about their time, right? And you care about their money. And that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff, and I'm so excited to do it with Paul, and why again, it allowed me to be successful when I was a retailer because we really cared. We showed people, not only do we say we care, anybody can say as a we care about you, we're the best at this, we're number one. Well, when they go to your website or they show up at your store, well, that's where it's proven, right? Like what do the cars look like? How you reconditioning your cars, how you merchandising your cars. That shows because people will trust you if you take the time and spend the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as you can
Well,
see,
I
I'm very
think the real
passionate about
question,
that.
the question to me always comes like everything you said. I think every dealer listening is nodding their head like, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. The difference between the ones that do it and the ones that don't do it are the ones that operationalize it, right? They set in place processes that make sure it happens, right? You have your things listed out. You have processes in place where people are accountable for it, and things, and it starts, right? Acquisition strategies, then merchandising and reconditioning and taking your photos, and kind of constantly mystery shopping yourself to know like a simple way that you can keep tabs, because like you don't always need to go through a big mystery shop, but the best dealers I know have processes in place to constantly check up on what their people are doing, right? And how people are perceiving from the internet into the building through the process. Because you can market, you can talk about all the stuff, you can say all the things, right? Everybody says all the things. Like literally everybody says all the things. We're the best. We're family, right? We care about you. It's the difference, right? And I know some
why
really
buy?
great groups that, what'd you say?
The why buy.
The why buy, right? And they all sound like very noisy because they're all kind of
Mhm.
the same. But you go to 5 dealers that say the same thing, you're going to have 5 very different experiences, I guarantee you. And the difference between the
My
good ones and
favorites.
the other ones are the operational, like
Yeah.
who operationalized it.
Yeah. My favorite's family owned. It's like, you really think people give a shit?
Yeah.
No
It's
one
like,
Probably
cares.
not.
why?
Yeah,
Right.
So
no
how
one
long
cares.
so with this blueprint, dealership growth blueprint, how long is this? What's the course? Was it 8-week course? I think I was reading where it's
Yeah.
8-week course, you get some coaching.
Yep.
You also
It's
have
a once a week together, right?
okay.
Once a week together where Todd's going to talk through the topic, right? And there's process and slides. And then each week has like takeaway sheet, right? Like you get these downloadable things and then the conversation moves to the Discord. And you can, if you missed it, right, you can see it. And then the conversation moves to the Discord. And that's where people are going to be, Todd's going to be in there. I'm going to be in there helping. Hey, I tried this happened, right? Troubleshooting, sharing additional resources. And that goes through 8 weeks. With all of that constant conversation. So we're like, look, if people want to commit 60 days, and it's not even like, 60 hardcore days, but because everything's not going to apply to everybody, right? Oh, I'm not ready to change this part of my business, that. And so you get the coaching 1 hour, but then you have access all the other hours, which where the real value comes from is that when the rubber meets the road. And yeah, so 8 weeks, beginning to end. And we're going to continue like an element of the community after that, right? Like, hey, once you do the 8-week course, right? Like we're going to keep a community lane open so that the alumni can continue to learn and grow from. Maybe we'll develop other ones as we go, but we kind of picked this is the stuff that, that one simple operational change could just save so much money or make you so much more profit on the other side. Like we all know, like sometimes it's that little thing that we tweaked that's going to happen. So yeah, we were even like, Todd and I were like, if people don't get the value out of this class, like we'll give them the money back, because you just know that it's going to make that kind of difference.
Who's your prime targeted audience for this? This is a dealership that maybe is struggling. Is it more geared towards the merchandising, or would this, could someone jump into this that maybe just purchased a dealership or is thinking about getting into owning a used car dealership? Would this
I
course
think
fit them, or again, it's just like, here's a dealer, your average dealership out there that's doing well, but definitely has room for improvement. Uh, you know, Maybe they're just following the OEM guidelines and they're really not doing a lot of things extra, especially with maybe their online merchandising. How deep do these courses get? I'm curious.
I think it's good for anybody who is selling used cars, whether they're a franchised new car dealer with a used car department, regardless of size. Independent used car dealers, I think it's very valuable. Anybody that's considering getting in the business that wants to get educated, and vendors, right? Like I think it's valuable for vendors too. Anybody that's selling a product to a dealer that has to do with the sale of a used car, I believe there's value there for the vendor, and we're going to make sure that the vendors get value from it. And I think the Discord, having dealers and vendors together involved in this community, is going to really provide a lot of value as well. And if honestly, too, if you're a vendor and you want to do it, you might have an opportunity to pick up some business, to be quite honest with you, because you might meet a dealer that might need your service. So, I mean, I think everybody wins. And it doesn't matter when we talk about mediocrity, right? Like you can always do better. I don't care how good you are. You can always do better in one aspect of your business. If you pick up one tip from this with acquisition, or a couple of tips for merchandising, or reconditioning is something we're really going to heavily focus on. And I think that if you pick up just a couple of things, number one, you'll be worth your time, because your time is worth more than any amount of money. Number one, and number two, like I said, if you don't get value from this, we're going to give you your money back. I mean, we're not here to take people's money. That's not what this is about. Obviously, there's a cost involved. We've got the cost of putting this whole thing together. But if you're not happy with it, we're going to give you back your money. So there's nothing to lose here, but everything to gain by education, and really more importantly, I think community. At the end of the
I
day, I
mean,
think this really is to be about community.
that's one of the reasons we're like said we're going to let everybody sign up for week 1 for free, right? So you can see if it's a fit. Like maybe you're in and you're like, you know what, maybe it's not my group, or maybe you're like, hey, there's something here. So we put the banger up front, used car acquisition strategies. Like we were like, that was down further in the course. We're like, actually, let's let everyone in on that one, because
Especially
that's
right now.
probably where Todd has the most relevant experience for what is the hot topic right now. So, I mean, people can sign up for it and like just come check that out for free and see if it's something that they want to continue, get an energy, for Todd and what the interaction and the courses and the Discord might be. But I think, Jeff, to your question, like who's it good for? Just like anything, I think someone who's new, right, or newer to the industry is going to have they're going to walk into this big room and they're like, wow, there are all these sections to this room that I didn't realize were here, like through this door. And then you're going to get experienced people that are going to come in and be like, yeah, I kind of know what sections are in here. And they're just going to hone in on one of the sections and be like, this is where I really think we can make improvement or move the needle forward, for wherever we're at. So I think there really is, like Todd said, something for everybody. If you're new, I can't think of a better place to be, because you're going to start thinking holistically around the areas where you might be making or losing money. And, if you're experienced, you're going to refine something, or, work a little bit closer with somebody who's going to help get you aligned in that area. And maybe some of the resources too that you get, like even some of the checklists and sheets we've developed, right? Like a merchandising checklist or a comprehensive do's and don'ts of vehicle photos. Like sometimes people just don't have that process in order. And to be able to just like, you know what, I'm going to give that to my photo team. And then all of a sudden they're pushing 6 more cars a day through, because they have a little process and now everything's consistent. So, I don't think any 2 people are going to come away with the same takeaway, but I think there'll be a lot of different types of people who, find big value in it.
So I was
Community.
reading there. So used car acquisition strategies. That's the one that the first week, and pretty much anyone can sign up for that. And then week 2, I was reading vehicle merchandising and reconditioning. Week 3, photos to sell cars. Week 4, airtight appraisal process. I like the sound of that. Effective mystery shopping, and then customer prospecting, marketing methods, and then implementation of strategies and techniques. So it's pretty robust, gentlemen.
Trying. Talking from two people who have had
We
to
are.
implement stuff in business for decades, it's like, that's why we put that 8th week in, the implementation strategies, because look, a lot of us have learned a lot of things that
Yep,
we just
we don't know
don't
how
do,
to implement
right? We just don't do it, right? That's why I think David Long said
So,
it on this morning's
guys,
clubhouse room. He said, if you have 3 frogs on a log and 2 decided to jump off, how many frogs do you have left? The answer is 3. Just because they
one thing
decided to jump off
one
doesn't,
thing I'll
they just didn't.
it. True.
Hey, one thing I want to mention too, when you talk about merchandising and reconditioning, we're not just going to talk about for retail, we're going to talk about for wholesale as well. There is some techniques for merchandising and reconditioning for wholesale to make more money wholesale for sure, or at least break even, depending on how you run your operation. So we are going to talk about that too. And again, there's value there obviously for dealers, but there's also value there for vendors too, because a lot of dealers or even vendors don't necessarily think about, geez, I'll give you an example. Does Rapid Recon think about, or Recon Velocity think about processes for reconditioning for wholesale? How many people are building workflows in their dealership for Recon for wholesale? I think very few,
Very
right? And
few.
I think it should be very, very few, right? That's how I think, right? Like,
Mhm.
why leave one penny on the table if you've got an asset, whether it's $100 car or $100,000 car that you're going to wholesale? Why leave 1 cent on the table? Merchandise it, recondition it properly, and like those are the things that we're going to talk about. I can't wait, Paul. I can't wait to do this.
Me neither.
I'm excited, and I couldn't think about doing it anybody better than with Paul, because Paul has such a good understanding of the business, but he also has a very good understanding of community, and he's built that with Automotive State of the Union, um, in branding and marketing. Like, it's going to be awesome. I can't wait, and it's going to be exciting. It really is.
No, that's
No
the
wonder you
key.
guys are good
That-
friends. You're only stroking each other's ego.
It's
Jesus.
awesome. I feel so
It's
good when
true.
I spend time with
It's just we're good friends. We are. We're buddies. That's
So
why we did business
is
together for so long.
this going to start at a particular time and everyone has to get in at that time, or will this be something ongoing? So if you missed out when the first start date, will you have to wait another 8 weeks for the
Yeah,
next
we'll
session
we'll
to
have we'll
start?
have staggered starts and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
now, if people go to the site and sign up, we're gonna announce a first class date. Um, we'll see how it goes, right? Because just like
Okay.
anything, likely we'll probably have staggered start dates where there might be one a month, right? And you're doing,
Mhm.
so like one class starts on October 1st, another one on November 1st or whatever, and then everyone goes through their weeks, so we every 4 weeks. Because I think leaving 8 weeks is just not going to be, not going to be
Yeah.
feasible. So probably staggered start dates, but it's definitely once the class starts, that's closed until the next start date.
And the URL is dealershipgrowthblueprint.com, correct?
That's it.
Okay.
Dealershipgrowthblueprint.com.
You can also get to it by going to Dealer Refresh, and if you see the
Yeah.
the
That is
banner
one.
anywhere, click that.
Yeah.
Click on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look good.
Awesome.
But I think you guys are brilliant in not just putting this program together, but having the community afterward and during. Yeah, that is such a key thing, because even the people, as you were talking about, the noobs, they're the new people. They're the obvious ones to benefit from anything, but the more experienced players, there's benefit in the community. There's benefit in perspective. There's benefit
There
of
you
getting out of your echo chamber, and
Mhm.
that's that whole Discord channel. And again, I'd love to merge our communities in some way at some point, and provide the hosting for it if you're up for it. But
definitely talk about that.
yeah, but
We should, and when we first came up with this idea I immediately thought of you two and mentioned it to Paul. There's a lot of synergies with what Paul and I are doing, with what you've done with Refresh over the years, and you guys have built up really one hell of a community that I've obviously been a part of, kind of in and out for a very, very, very long time. And it's just okay. This is not an easy business, and it may have been a little bit easier the last couple of years, but it's going to start getting real hard again. We need each other, right? We really, really need each other, not just from the dealer side, but I think the vendor side too. It's a hard business to navigate because buying a car is a big deal and it's extremely emotional. And most importantly, it's a lot of money. So I think the more we can learn from each other, the better to navigate through this crazy business that we're in. And now we're going to be dealing with EVs, which is just starting. Like we're just at the beginning of
Oh,
I
yeah.
just think the industry is going to change a lot over the next 10 to 15 years between EVs and these self-driving cars, which is going to be again a little bit further down the road, but that's how my mind is wired. This industry is going to, in mobile service too, right? This business is really going to change a lot. So we're all in this together, as far as I'm concerned, and I can't get away from it. I hope my wife stays with me because I can't get out of this business. I love it.
She's been here this long, Todd.
She's used to it. I think
Yeah, I
you
know, I'm
made it
driving
through
her
the hard
nuts.
years, buddy. Yeah.
26 years, but I'm still driving her nuts. So
Now she's like, Todd, so how much time at home actually are you going to be spending here? She's like, let me help you promote your
that's the
consulting
beauty.
business.
That's the beauty of
Yeah.
online.
Share that. She already knows you're crazy. She's in
She
for the
does.
long haul.
Oh yeah, she knows. She knows. She knows.
All right, well, give us
Anybody that's in this business, they know.
a quick brief on, again, the URL, how to get a hold of you. Of course, we got the information on Dealer Refresh. A recording of this will be over in the forums shortly. We'll make sure we get the links and more information over there as well.
Yeah, it's easy. You can just go to dealershipgrowthblueprint.com. It really outlines all the classes, what you get with it. There's a lot of FAQs on the site, little background about myself and Todd. You can just click on register free, really simple, easy sign up process. And then you're in, you'll get an email from Deanna, who is kind of our head of community organization on this side. She actually used to work for Todd back. I just hired all his people when he sold his business. And Deanna's great, and she'll send like an individual email to you that will make sure you have the access credentials. Todd and I are always banging around online. Todd's on Facebook more than I am, but I think we're both on LinkedIn. We do answer our DMs, so please just reach out to us. I'm always ready to help you however we can, even if it's not through the blueprint. But I mean, I hope everybody signs up for at least the free first week so we can kind of get in a room with everybody and kind of show them what this made of. And hopefully people walk away, even if they don't do the course, they walk away, with something that they can make our industry a little better.
Well, and you're going to have, a percentage of people that are interested in, but maybe it's not the right timing for them, but they're going to remember that and they're going to bookmark it, mentally or physically and come back to it. No doubt.
For sure.
Awesome.
I agree.
Well, good luck, guys, and anything we can do to help, we're here.
Thank you.
You got it.
Much. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Guys,
Have a great
thanks
weekend.
for everything. Good to see you as always. You guys take care.
Sure.
Bye.